I never thought Thanksgiving would be the day my own son told me I was no longer welcome in his home. But there I was, standing at South Station in Boston at 4 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon, watching my son, Kevin's BMW, disappear into holiday traffic, while families all around me rushed to catch trains home to their loved ones. My duffel bag sat at my feet, the one my daughter-in-law Stephanie had packed while I was in the bathroom, not even giving me the chance to choose what to bring. "Dad, we need to have a serious conversation," Kevin had said that morning while I was helping Stephanie prep the turkey. I'd been living with them for 8 months in their Brookline townhouse, ever since my hip surgery left me unable to climb the stairs in my old apartment. "Of course, son. What's going on?" "We've decided it's time for you to find your own place." Stephanie stepped away from the kitchen counter, her arms crossed in that way I'd come to recognize over the past few months. "Robert, we've tried. We really have. But the kids need stability. Emma's room is too small for her art supplies, and honestly, having a third adult in this house is suffocating us. But I pay rent. I help with groceries. I pick up the kids from school every day." "That's not the point," Kevin interrupted, still not looking me in the eye. "You're 68, Dad. You should be enjoying retirement somewhere warm. Arizona, maybe. Florida. We found some nice assisted living facilities online." "Assisted living?" "Kevin, I had hip surgery, not a lobotomy. I'm perfectly capable of living independently." "Then do it," Stephanie said, her voice sharp. "Live independently, just not here. We need our space back." I felt the words like a punch to the gut. For 8 months, I'd bent over backward to be invisible. I did the dishes when no one asked. I walked their dog Bailey at 6 a.m. so Kevin could sleep in. I'd given them $30,000 from my retirement savings to help with Emma's private school tuition when Kevin mentioned they were struggling last spring. "I see," I managed to say. "When would you like me to leave?" "Today would be best," Stephanie answered quickly. "Kevin can drop you at South Station. You can take a train to wherever you want to go while you figure out your next steps. Today, it's Thanksgiving." "We're aware," Kevin said, finally meeting my eyes. "That's why we want to handle this now, before the extended family arrives for dinner. It would be awkward to have this conversation with everyone here. We've told them you had a last-minute trip planned." "You told them what?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You lied to your aunts and uncles about why I'm not at Thanksgiving dinner?" "We told them you're visiting an old army buddy." Kevin shrugged like it was nothing. "It's easier this way, Dad. Less drama." I stared at him, trying to see the little boy I'd raised alone after his mother left us when he was 7. The kid I'd worked double shifts for, skipping meals so he could have new sneakers for basketball season. The young man whose college tuition I'd paid in full, depleting my savings because I didn't want him starting life with debt. "Fine," I said, my voice cold. "If that's what you want." "Good." Stephanie actually smiled. "I'll pack a bag for you. Kevin, get the car warmed up." 2 hours later, after the most humiliating car ride of my life, where Kevin talked about real estate prices and the stock market like he hadn't just thrown his father out on a family holiday, he pulled up to the station entrance. "So, you'll find a hotel tonight?" he asked, handing me 2 20s and a 5. This should help with a cab or whatever. $45 for a hotel in Boston on Thanksgiving. But I didn't argue, I just nodded. "Text me when you're settled somewhere, okay? And Dad, this is for the best. You'll see." And then he was gone, merging into traffic without looking back. I stood there in the November cold, watching strangers hurry past me with rolling suitcases and shopping bags, everyone with somewhere to be, someone waiting for them. I had no one. My savings were nearly gone, most of it given to Kevin over the years. My brother Tom had passed away 3 years ago. My sister in Oregon hadn't spoken to me since our mother's funeral, some old grudge about the estate that I'd never fully understood. My old army buddies were scattered across the country, and I hadn't kept in touch the way I should have. I made my way inside the station, found a bench near the Amtrak departures board, and sat down. I had maybe $400 in my checking account. My Social Security check wasn't due for another 2 weeks. The cheapest hotel I could find on my phone was $140 a night, and that was 30 minutes outside the city. I put my head in my hands. 68 years old, a veteran, a father, a grandfather, and I was homeless on Thanksgiving. Kevin hadn't even said Happy Thanksgiving. Rough holiday? I looked up. An elderly man sat in a wheelchair about 6 feet away from me, positioned near a pillar, as if waiting for someone. He wore a beautifully tailored overcoat, charcoal gray, and his white hair was neatly combed back. His face was weathered, deeply lined, but his eyes were sharp and kind. A small American flag pin glinted on his lapel. "You could say that," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've been watching you for about 10 minutes, he said. "You've checked your phone 6 times, sighed 4 times, and looked at that departures board like you're hoping a destination will magically appear. Either you're lost, or you're trying very hard not to cry. Both, probably." I laughed bitterly. "Both. Family troubles, I'm guessing. It's Thanksgiving, and you're sitting alone in a train station with a duffel bag. Doesn't take a detective. Something about his straightforward manner, or maybe just the fact that I'd been holding it all in since that morning, made me crack. My son kicked me out this morning. I'm 68 years old, and I have nowhere to go. I helped raise his kids. I gave him money for their mortgage. I gave him money for my granddaughter's school. And this morning, he told me I was suffocating his family and dropped me here with $45. The old man was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I'm sorry. That's a terrible thing for any father to experience. What branch did you serve?" I blinked at the sudden shift. "How did you know?" "The way you sit," he said, "straight back, even when you're defeated. Plus, you've got that look." "I was infantry, Vietnam, 69 to 71. "Army," I said. 67 to 75, 2 tours. Then I figured that out too. Brothers in arms then. Even if we never met over there." He extended his hand. "Harold Montgomery." "Robert Thornton," I said, shaking it. His grip was surprisingly strong for a man who had to be pushing 80 at least. "Robert, I'm going to make you a strange offer. My driver is running late, which never happens, but maybe that's the universe doing what it does. When she gets here, I want you to tell her you're my cousin. You've been helping me with some appointments today, and I'm giving you a ride to my home for Thanksgiving dinner. Can you do that?" I stared at him. "Why would you do that?" "Because I've been where you are, in spirit, if not in circumstance. And because I have a 17-bedroom house, a full Thanksgiving dinner being prepared by my staff, and exactly 0 family members to share it with. I could use the company. And I think you could use a meal and a place to think." I hesitated. "You don't know anything about me." "I know you're a veteran," he said simply. "I know your son treated you like garbage. I know you said thank you to the janitor who emptied the trash can near us 5 minutes ago, even though most people don't even see maintenance workers. And I know that when that little girl dropped her stuffed animal over there, you were about to get up and help her before her mother reached it." He smiled. "That tells me enough. Will you trust me? What did I have to lose? At this point, absolutely nothing. All right, good. And Robert, when we get to my home, don't be surprised by anything you see. Just go with it. Can you do that?" Before I could respond, a black Mercedes van with tinted windows pulled up to the curb outside. A woman in a professional gray suit stepped out, opened the back, and retrieved a wheelchair ramp. "Mr. Montgomery, I'm so sorry for the delay." She was flustered. The I-93 was a parking lot. "Nothing to apologize for, Clara. This is my cousin Robert. He's joining us for Thanksgiving. We're ready to head home." Clara's eyes flickered to me with brief surprise, but her professionalism was impeccable. "Of course, sir. Welcome, Robert. Let me help you both." The interior of the van was customized for wheelchair accessibility, with leather seating that probably cost more than my last car. Clara drove us west, out of the city, through suburbs that grew progressively larger and more exclusive. "Where exactly are we going?" I whispered to Harold. "Home," he said simply. "It's been my home for 53 years. It could be yours too, if you want it to be." 40 minutes later, we turned onto a private road, marked only by a small stone marker that read Montgomery. We drove for another quarter mile through old-growth trees before emerging into a clearing where a Georgian-style mansion sat on what had to be at least 15 acres of manicured grounds. The house itself was enormous, red brick with white columns, at least 30 windows on the front face alone. I tried to keep my composure, remembering Harold's instructions. "This is beautiful," I said, aiming for casual and probably failing completely. "My wife Margaret fell in love with it in 1971, Harold said, his voice softening. "We bought it when it was practically falling apart. Spent 20 years restoring it together. She said it reminded her of her grandmother's house in Virginia." I could hear the love in his voice, even after what had to be decades. A man in his 60s, dressed in a crisp white shirt and dark vest, met us at the door. "Mr. Montgomery, welcome home. And you must be the cousin." He looked at me with a slight smile that suggested he knew exactly what was going on and was playing along. "This is Robert Charles. He'll be joining us for Thanksgiving dinner. Please have Mrs. Patterson set another place at the table and prepare the Williamsburg guest suite. Robert's had a long day. "Of course, sir. Robert, welcome. I'm Charles, Mr. Montgomery's house manager. Let me show you to your room so you can freshen up before dinner. Dinner is at 7. I followed him through a house that belonged in a museum, past oil paintings and antique furniture, and a library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. He led me upstairs in an elevator clearly installed for Harold's wheelchair, then down a hallway to a suite larger than Kevin's entire first floor. "The Williamsburg suite," Charles said, opening double doors to reveal a bedroom with a 4-poster bed, a sitting area with a fireplace, and windows overlooking a garden. "Bathroom is through there. Mrs. Patterson has laid out some clothing if you'd like to change for dinner. Mr. Montgomery keeps a variety of sizes on hand for guests." When he left, I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to process what was happening. Who was Harold Montgomery? Why was he helping a stranger he'd met in a train station? And how long could any of this possibly last? I showered, changed into a button-down shirt and slacks that fit surprisingly well, and made my way downstairs at 7. Harold was already positioned at the head of a dining table that could easily seat 20. He'd changed into a burgundy sweater and looked genuinely happy to see me. "Robert, sit, please. You're probably full of questions. I don't even know where to start." "Start with dinner," he said. "Mrs. Patterson makes the best Thanksgiving spread you've ever had. Then we'll talk." The meal was incredible. Turkey that practically fell off the bone, homemade stuffing, cranberry sauce, sweet potatoes, green beans. I realized I hadn't eaten since a piece of toast that morning before Kevin dropped his bomb. "I'm dying," Harold said suddenly, about halfway through dinner. "Prostate cancer that spread. Maybe 4 months, maybe less. The doctors keep being optimistic, but I know my body. I've made my peace with it." I set down my fork. "I'm sorry, don't be. I've had 81 years, and most of them were extraordinary. But here's the thing, Robert. I built something in this life. Montgomery Properties owns commercial real estate in 14 states. Office buildings, shopping centers, apartment complexes. We employ over 2,000 people, and I have absolutely no one to leave it to." "No children?" "I had a daughter," he said quietly. "Sarah, she would have been 54 now. Leukemia took her when she was 12. Margaret never recovered from that. Neither did I, really. She passed 15 years ago. Heart attack. Doctors said it was sudden, but I think her heart had been broken since Sarah died. It just finally gave up. I'm truly sorry, Harold." He nodded. "I threw myself into work after that. Built an empire because I couldn't build a family. Bought buildings because I couldn't buy back time with my daughter. Made millions because money was the only thing that didn't leave me or die on me. I've spent the last 3 years watching families, Robert. At charity events, at hospitals, at holiday gatherings. I watch how people treat each other. You know what I see most often?" I shook my head. "Obligation dressed up as love. Children who visit their parents because they're supposed to, not because they want to. Grandchildren checking their phones while their grandparents try to have a conversation. People counting down the minutes until they can leave. But real love, the kind Margaret and I had, the kind Sarah gave us for 12 too short years, that's rare. And you can always tell the difference. Why are you telling me this? Because today, in that train station, I saw something in you that I recognized. A good man who gave everything to his family and got thrown away when he became inconvenient. And I thought about Sarah, about Margaret, about how I'd give every dollar, every building, every acre of this estate for one more Thanksgiving with them. Your son had you, Robert. He had a father who loved him, who sacrificed for him, and he threw that away for extra closet space. It's complicated, I said weakly. No, Robert, it's not. Love is never complicated. Selfishness just likes to disguise itself that way. What happened to you today was simple. Your son chose his own comfort over his father's dignity. On Thanksgiving, for God's sake, I felt tears burning in my eyes. I don't know what you want from me. I want to make you a proposition. Stay here. Live in this house as my guest. In exchange, I'd like your company. Someone to talk to, someone to share meals with, someone who understands what it means to serve this country, and wonder if any of it mattered in the end. I don't have long, Robert. I don't want to spend my remaining months in this empty house with only staff for company. I can't accept charity. It's not charity. It's companionship. But if it helps your pride, you can work for me. I'm trying to organize my papers, my photographs, my history. Margaret always said I should document everything for the family archives, but there's no family left to archive for. Maybe you can help me anyway. We'll call you my personal assistant. Why me? You don't even know me. Harold smiled. I know you sat in that station for almost an hour, rather than call your son and beg to come back. I know you thanked every single person who helped us today, from Clara to Charles to Mrs. Patterson. I know you haven't once asked me how much anything in this house costs, or what I'm worth. And I know that when I mentioned my daughter, your first instinct was sympathy, not curiosity about what happened to her inheritance. He paused. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. I was crying now. Couldn't help it. Everything was hitting me at once. I don't understand any of this, Harold. You don't have to. Not yet. Just say yes. Stay. Let me give you the time and space to heal and plan your next chapter. And give me the gift of not spending my last holiday season alone in this museum of memories. Fair trade? I wiped my eyes. Fair trade. Good. Now finish your pie. Tomorrow, Charles will take you shopping for whatever you need. Proper clothes, toiletries, anything. Consider it part of your compensation. $50,000 a year, plus room and board. Is that acceptable? $50,000. Harold, I can't. You can, and you will. I've spent 60 years building wealth I can't take with me. Let me spend some of it on something that matters. That night, lying in the most comfortable bed I'd ever slept in, I called Kevin. He answered on the fourth ring, and I could hear laughter and conversation in the background. The Thanksgiving dinner I should have been at. Hey, Dad, you get settled somewhere? Yes, I'm staying with a friend for a while. Oh, good, great. He sounded relieved, like he'd been worried I might show up back at his door. Listen, about today. Sorry if it seemed harsh. We just needed to rip off the Band-Aid, you know. I understand, Kevin. Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, you too, Dad. Hey, I gotta go. Emma wants to show me her drawing. Talk soon? Sure. Goodbye, Kevin. I hung up before he could respond and turned off my phone. He hadn't even asked where I was. The next 3 months were unlike anything I'd experienced in my entire adult life. Harold and I fell into a comfortable routine. Breakfast at 8, where he'd tell me stories about building his business in the 60 seconds and 70 seconds, when Boston was transforming from an old industrial city into the financial center it became. He wanted every detail of my memories from that era, too. The neighborhoods that changed, the buildings that went up and came down, the feeling of a city constantly reinventing itself. Mid-morning, we'd work in his study, a room with dark wood paneling and photographs covering every surface. Photographs of Margaret, elegant and beautiful, with dark hair and a mischievous smile. Photographs of Sarah at various ages, from baby to toddler to the 11-year-old she'd been the Christmas before she got sick. Photographs of Harold shaking hands with governors and mayors and presidents, receiving awards, cutting ribbons. Tell me about this one, I'd say, pointing to a picture of Harold and Margaret at what looked like a construction site. And he'd light up, remembering the day they broke ground on his first office building in 1973, how Margaret had insisted on wearing heels even though the site was all mud and gravel, how she'd laughed when she sank 3 inches into the ground and had to be carried back to the car. Afternoons, weather permitting, I'd wheel Harold through the grounds. He knew every tree, every flower bed, every stone in the paths, having lived here for half a century. Margaret planted those roses the year Sarah was born, he'd say as we passed a bed of winter-dormant bushes. She said she wanted something that would grow with our daughter. After Sarah died, I couldn't bear to look at them, but I couldn't bear to cut them down either. So I just stopped walking this direction for a few years. You know what I miss most about being stuck in this chair? The feeling of grass under my feet, he said, one December day, as we watched birds at the feeder Margaret had installed decades ago. I used to walk these grounds every morning. Margaret would wave to me from the kitchen window. After she was gone, I still walked them. Felt like she was still watching somehow. What happened? I asked. Stroke, 2 years ago, left me with weakness on the right side. I can stand with help, walk a few steps with a walker, but the days of morning strolls are over. I'm told I should be grateful I can still speak clearly and think straight. Most days I am. We'd have dinner together every evening. Sometimes Charles would join us, and I learned he'd been with Harold for almost 30 years, since just after Margaret passed. He treated Harold like family, and he accepted me into the household with a warmth that made my chest ache. You're good for him, Charles told me one evening while we were going through old photographs for the archive project. He laughs now, makes jokes. Last year, I was genuinely worried he was giving up. He's been good for me too, I admitted. Kevin called 3 times in those 3 months. Short, awkward conversations where he asked if I'd found an apartment yet, and I deflected. I didn't tell him about Harold or the estate. Something held me back. Maybe I wasn't ready to share this part of my life with the son who'd thrown me away. Or maybe I was protecting Harold's privacy, or my own fragile peace. Then, in late February, everything changed. I was in the study with Harold, reading aloud from a chapter he'd written about acquiring his first shopping center in 1979, when Charles knocked on the door. Mr. Montgomery, you have visitors. A man and woman claiming to be Mr. Thornton's family. They're insisting on seeing him. My blood went cold. What? Harold's face remained calm, but I saw his jaw tighten. Show them to the conservatory, Charles. Robert and I will be there shortly. As Charles left, I turned to Harold. How did they find me? I never told Kevin where I was staying. The internet makes privacy nearly impossible these days, Harold said. And this estate is rather well known in certain circles. Someone with motivation and resources could track you here. The question is, what do they want? We found out quickly enough. Kevin and Stephanie stood in the conservatory, surrounded by Harold's collection of orchids, dressed like they were attending a business meeting rather than confronting family. Kevin's eyes went wide when he saw the mansion's interior. The art, the obvious wealth. Wider still when he saw Harold in his wheelchair, impeccably dressed in cashmere, projecting the quiet authority of a man who'd built an empire. Dad, there you are. Kevin's voice had taken on an oily quality I remembered from his college years when he wanted money or permission. We've been worried sick. You stopped returning our calls. I returned every call, Kevin. All 3 of them in 3 months. Well, we're here now. Stephanie smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. The kids miss you terribly. Emma asks about you constantly. And who is your friend? Harold wheeled himself forward. I'm Harold Montgomery. Robert has been staying with me. And you are? Kevin Morrison, Robert's son. Stephanie stepped forward. This is my wife, Stephanie. Mr. Montgomery, it's so kind of you to have taken our father in, but we think it's time for him to come home. We've talked about it, and we realize we were too hasty. We want him back. How convenient, Harold said dryly. And what prompted this change of heart? We missed him, Stephanie said, her rehearsed smile firmly in place. The children have been asking where Grandpa went. Family should be together, especially at Robert's age. It's not good for seniors to be isolated. I see, Harold said. Robert, what do you think? Every eye in the room turned to me. Kevin looked expectant, almost confident. Stephanie maintained her smile. Harold waited patiently. I think, I said slowly, that you kicked me out on Thanksgiving. You told me I was suffocating your family. You drove away and left me at South Station with $45 and a duffel bag. And I think you didn't give a damn what happened to me until you figured out where I was staying. Kevin's face flushed. Dad, that's not fair. We were under a lot of stress. The holidays are hard. How did you find this address, Kevin? He hesitated for just a moment. I hired a private investigator. When you wouldn't tell me where you were staying, I got concerned. And when I found out it was Harold Montgomery's estate, I realized maybe we'd made a mistake. You hired a private investigator because you were worried, I said flatly. Or because you wanted to know if I'd fallen into money? Dad! Stephanie interjected, her voice wounded. How can you say that? We love you. We're family. Are you? Harold asked quietly. Tell me, Stephanie, when is Robert's birthday? She blinked. It's in April, I said. April 14th. I turned 68 last year. You forgot my birthday completely, Kevin stammered. We were busy. Emma had soccer playoffs. An easy mistake, Harold said. Here's another question. What company did Robert work for before he retired? Robert spent 32 years at Boston Edison, Kevin said quickly. He was proud of that. What was his job title when he retired? Kevin opened his mouth, then closed it. He glanced at Stephanie, who looked equally blank. Senior electrical engineer, I said quietly. I designed substations for the last 15 years of my career. You came to my retirement party, Kevin. You gave a speech. You don't remember any of that, do you? I remember the important stuff, Kevin said defensively. What's really going on here? Harold asked. The truth. I've been in business for 60 years. I know when people are dancing around their actual agenda. Kevin and Stephanie exchanged glances. Finally, Kevin spoke. Fine. We did some research on you, Mr. Montgomery. We know who you are, what you're worth. And frankly, we're concerned about our father living in a situation that could be seen as exploitative. Exploitative? I repeated, my voice rising. That's rich. Coming from the people who took $30,000 from me for Emma's tuition and then threw me out like garbage 6 months later. We didn't take it, Kevin protested. You offered. And you accepted. When's the last time you asked if I needed anything? When's the last time you took me to dinner, just the two of us? Called just to talk, not because you needed something? I stared at my son. You want to know what exploitation looks like, Kevin? It looks like a son who lets his father pay his mortgage, fund his child's education, babysit for free, and then decides that father is an inconvenience when he needs a little help after surgery. I worked 2 jobs when your mother left us. I skipped meals so you could have basketball camp. I cashed out my $401k early to pay for your college so you wouldn't have debt. And this is what I got in return. Harold held up a hand. I think we're done here. Kevin, Stephanie, I'm going to ask you to leave. Robert is welcome here as long as he chooses to stay. If he wishes to contact you, he will. You can't just keep him here, Kevin said, his voice rising. He's our family. We have rights. I'm not keeping anyone anywhere, Harold said coldly. Robert is a grown man who can make his own choices. Unlike you, I respect that. Charles will show you out. After they left, I sank into one of the conservatory chairs, my hands shaking. I'm sorry, Harold. I never wanted to bring this kind of drama into your home. Don't apologize, Harold said, wheeling closer to me. That was actually quite illuminating. Robert, I need to tell you something. I'd already been thinking about this, but today confirmed it. I'm changing my will. I want you to hear it from me first. I stared at him. Harold, no. You can't. You've only known me for 3 months. I knew Margaret for 6 weeks before I proposed, he said with a small smile. When you know, you know. Robert, I have no one. My distant relatives haven't spoken to me since Margaret's funeral. The cousins who came were more interested in appraising the silverware than mourning her. My executives are well compensated and will continue to be. But the estate, the business, the foundation we started in Sarah's name, they need someone with integrity to steward them. Someone who understands what it means to build something and wonder if it mattered. I think that's you. Harold, I don't know anything about real estate. You don't need to. I have excellent people running the day-to-day operations. What I need is someone who will make sure the company continues to operate with purpose, that the foundation keeps funding pediatric cancer research the way Margaret wanted, that this house becomes a home again instead of a shrine. Can you do that? I thought about Kevin, about how quickly his concern for my well-being had become concern about money, about how I'd rather have nothing in Harold's friendship than everything and Kevin's fake affection. If you trust me, I said finally, I won't let you down. I know you won't. Harold smiled. We'll see my lawyers next week. Make it official. And Robert, thank you. For what? For being here. For making my last months matter. For reminding me that family isn't about blood. It's about choice. Harold passed away on a warm April morning, 3 days after my 69th birthday. He'd insisted on celebrating, had Charles order a cake and everything. It was the first birthday anyone had acknowledged in years. When the end came, I was reading to him from a collection of Margaret's favorite poems. He smiled, squeezed my hand, and said, "Tell Margaret I'm coming home." Then he closed his eyes, just like that. The funeral was enormous. Business leaders, politicians, charity directors, hospital administrators, they all came to pay respects to Harold Montgomery, philanthropist and real estate titan. A full military honor guard presented the flag to me, as Harold had requested, one veteran to another. Kevin and Stephanie came too. I'd sent them the funeral notice. They sat in the back, their faces carefully neutral, watching everything. The will reading was held 10 days later at the offices of Harrison, Wells, and Montgomery, a firm that had represented Harold for 40 years. Kevin and Stephanie arrived early, dressed in formal black, having somehow obtained information about the meeting time and location. I didn't ask how. I suspected the private investigator was still on retainer. Harold's lawyer, Patricia Wells, was a sharp woman in her 60s who had known Harold since law school. She explained the various bequests efficiently, generous donations to hospitals and universities, a substantial trust for the Montgomery Foundation for Pediatric Cancer Research, $1 million to Charles, along with the right to live in the guest cottage for the rest of his life. Significant bonuses for longtime employees. And now we come to the primary estate, Patricia said, looking at me over her reading glasses. The Brookline estate, all business holdings, the investment portfolio valued at approximately $123 million, and controlling interest in Montgomery properties. Mr. Montgomery has bequeathed all of this to Robert Edward Thornton. The silence was deafening. Then Kevin exploded. That's impossible. He knew my father for what? 4 months? This is clearly undue influence. Elder abuse. We'll contest this in court. You're welcome to try, Patricia said calmly. But I should inform you that Mr. Montgomery anticipated this possibility. He left video testimony recorded over multiple sessions explaining his decision in detail, witnessed by 2 physicians who attested to his complete mental competency. He also left a letter to be read aloud in the event anyone contested his will. Would you like me to read it? Yes, Stephanie said, her face pale with fury. We absolutely would. Patricia opened an envelope and began to read. Harold's voice seemed to fill the room through her words. To whoever is contesting this will, most likely Kevin Thornton, if I had to guess. I'm dead, so I can finally say what I think without worrying about social niceties. Robert Thornton is the finest man I've met in the last 20 years of my life. He came to my home with nothing but the clothes on his back and a broken heart. He asked for nothing, expected nothing, and gave everything. His time, his companionship, his genuine friendship without calculation or agenda. He made my final months joyful instead of lonely. He listened to my stories about Margaret and Sarah. He held my hand when the pain was bad and never once complained about his own troubles. He earned everything I'm giving him not through luck or manipulation, but through simple human decency, a quality that seems increasingly rare in this world. If you're contesting this will, it's probably because you think Robert stole something that should have been yours. Here's the truth. You can't steal what was never yours to begin with. Blood relation doesn't entitle you to anything except the obligation to treat that relation with love and respect. Kevin Thornton kicked his father out of his home on Thanksgiving Day. He left him at a train station with $45 and a duffel bag. He didn't check on him for months until he discovered his father might be connected to money. That's not family. That's exploitation. I spent 60 years building Montgomery properties. I started with nothing, built something, and I'll be damned if I let it go to people who only showed up when they smelled money. Robert will take care of my legacy. He'll make sure the foundation continues Sarah's memory. He'll make sure the company operates with integrity. And he'll probably be more generous with you, Kevin, than you ever deserved, because that's the kind of man he is. To everyone else, my decision is final and made with complete mental clarity, documented extensively. If you have a problem with it, you can take it up with me in the afterlife. I'll be happy to explain it again. With all my love and respect, Harold Edward Montgomery, United States Army, 1963 to 1971, husband to Margaret, father to Sarah, friend to Robert. The letter ended. Patricia set it down and looked at Kevin and Stephanie. Do you still wish to contest? Kevin's face had cycled through red and white and was now settling on a grayish pallor. His hands were shaking. No, he said quietly. No contest. They left without speaking to me. I stayed in that office for another 2 hours while Patricia explained the responsibilities I was inheriting. The board meetings, the foundation duties, the charitable obligations Harold had maintained for decades. It's overwhelming, I know, Patricia said finally. Harold knew that too. But he also knew you'd grow into it. And Robert, he was right about you. I've been his lawyer for 38 years. I've never seen him speak about anyone the way he spoke about you. Not since Margaret. You gave him something money couldn't buy. You gave him family at the end. 6 months later, I stood in Harold's study, my study now, looking out at the grounds where Margaret's roses had begun their autumn preparations. Charles knocked and entered with afternoon tea. A habit I'd maintained because it reminded me of Harold. You have a visitor, Charles said. Kevin is at the gate. He's asking to speak with you. I hadn't heard from my son since the will reading. Part of me wanted to send him away. But Harold's voice echoed in my head. You'll probably be more generous with him than he deserved, because that's the kind of man you are. Let him in, I said. Show him to the conservatory. Kevin looked different, older, somehow, and smaller. He stood awkwardly among Harold's orchids, hands in his pockets, unable to meet my eyes. Dad, he said, thank you for seeing me. What do you want, Kevin? To apologize. He finally looked up. Really apologize. Not because I want anything, not because of the money, but because I've spent the last 6 months realizing what I did to you, and I can't live with it anymore. What changed? Emma asked about you. His voice cracked. She wanted to know why Grandpa didn't come to her art show, why Grandpa doesn't call anymore. And when Stephanie tried to tell her some story about you being busy, Emma said, Grandpa was never too busy for me before. He picked me up from school every day. He helped me with my homework. Why doesn't he love me anymore? Kevin wiped his eyes. I realized I was teaching my daughter that family is disposable, that you throw people away when they're inconvenient. And I thought about Mom leaving us when I was 7, and how you never, not once, made me feel like a burden even though I know I was. Even though you were working 2 jobs and barely sleeping. I studied my son, looking for the angle, the manipulation. I found only exhaustion and shame and something that looked like genuine remorse. I can't forget what you did, I said finally. But maybe, with time, I can forgive it. Harold taught me something in the months I knew him. He taught me that family isn't about obligation. It's about choice. You chose to throw me away. That was your choice. But I'm choosing to give you one chance to earn your way back into my life. Not as my son who thinks he deserves anything, just because we share blood, but as a man who understands what he did wrong and wants to make it right. How? Kevin asked, his voice small. Start by being honest with Emma. Tell her the truth, that you made a mistake, that you hurt Grandpa, and that you're trying to fix it. Then maybe bring her here next Sunday. Let her see this place. Let me tell her about Harold and Margaret and Sarah, and we'll go from there. One visit at a time, one honest conversation at a time. No promises, no guarantees, just the chance to try again. Kevin nodded, tears streaming down his face. I'll take it. Thank you, Dad. I don't deserve this. No, I said. You don't, but I'm offering it anyway. Because that's what Harold would have wanted. Because that's what family means. Real family. After Kevin left, I went back to the study. To Harold's desk, where his photographs of Margaret and Sarah still held their places of honor. I'd added one of my own. A picture of Harold and me taken at my birthday dinner. Both of us smiling. Both of us looking genuinely happy. I picked up the phone and called the Montgomery Foundation director. Harold had established the Sarah Montgomery Fund 30 years ago to support families dealing with pediatric cancer. It was time to expand it. Time to honor his legacy in ways that would have made him proud. As I worked, I thought about that cold November day at South Station, about how desperate and alone I'd felt, about how an old man in a wheelchair had seen what my own son couldn't, that I had value beyond what I could provide, that I deserved dignity and respect and love. Harold had given me all of that, and in return, I'd given him what he wanted most, not to die alone, to matter to someone in his final days, to know that what he'd built would continue with purpose and heart. It was, I realized, the fairest trade two people could ever make, and I'd spend the rest of my life making sure I held up my end of the bargain. Because that's what family does. Real family. The kind that sees you when you're invisible. The kind that chooses you when the world walks away. The kind that Harold Montgomery taught me still exists, if you're lucky enough to find it. That's what I think about now, whenever I walk these grounds, past Margaret's roses, past the bench where Harold used to sit, and remember his wife and daughter. I think about second chances, about strangers who become family, about the moments that break us and the moments that remake us into something stronger. I think about a Thanksgiving when I lost everything, and a train station where I found something I didn't even know I was looking for. And I'm grateful. Every single day. Not for the money or the houses or the business empire I never expected and still don't fully understand, but for those 4 months with Harold, for the conversations and the stories and the quiet afternoons watching birds at Margaret's feeder, for the gift of being chosen by a man who had every reason to give up on people and didn't. If you're watching this, maybe you're going through something similar. Maybe someone you love has let you down. Maybe you feel invisible, disposable, like everything you gave meant nothing. I want you to tell you something, Harold told me, on one of those long winter evenings when we'd sit by the fire and talk about life and loss and what any of it means. He said, the people who throw you away are giving you information about themselves, not about you. Your value doesn't decrease because someone failed to see it. And sometimes, Robert, sometimes the universe puts exactly the right person in your path at exactly the right moment. Your job is just to say yes. I said yes to Harold Montgomery in a train station on Thanksgiving. It was the best decision I ever made. And if you ever find yourself at your lowest point, abandoned by the people who were supposed to love you, I hope you'll remember this story. I hope you'll remember that endings can be beginnings, that strangers can become family, that it's never too late to be seen, to be valued, to be chosen, because that's the real lesson Harold taught me. Not about money or success or building empires, but about love, real love, the kind that doesn't keep score, the kind that shows up when everyone else walks away, the kind that changes everything if you let it. If this story touched you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Like and subscribe to Maple Vengeance for more stories like this. And remember, no matter how dark things seem, your story isn't over. The best chapter might be the one you haven't written yet.